Well, here we are working on our Nurturing Mother's Day week project. And what we'll be doing is a simple expressive landscape with some old brushes, some acrylic paints. We have several colors here, some warm colors, which are your reds and yellows, oranges. And then we have the cool colors, which are the blues and greens. And then we have what I call a separate category. So we're not going to use black yet unless we decide to use a pencil or graphite or something like a Stabilo pencil in black or blue. I have both. I also have a white one, which makes interesting marks. But we could always start with that, and that would be interesting too once we have our warm colors down. So what we will start with is simply painting a background in an orangey color because it kind of implies warmth and love and comfort. So let's just start that way, and we'll start from scratch. What I have here is I've taped off a card. It's just simple cardstock. It opens up into a card that you could use as a gift card, or you could frame it afterwards. So here I have one that's almost done. It looks complicated, but it's not. All I did was simply put paint down with no plan at all, and I started to see something that looked like water, which you may see in yours. You may see mountains, but it's just starting really abstractly, and whatever happens afterwards happens. So no plan intended, and no pun intended, but we will start with our cards today. Or you could just do it on simple cardstock or a cereal box for that matter. Anything that you could paint on is fine. So here I am with my white background taped off, and I'll start off by just grabbing some of the orange paint and the yellow paint and a little bit of red and putting it on very loosely. No idea where it's going. I might even add a little white. And if it's not going my way because I'm using such a scratchy old brush, I'll use a newish brush and just rub that in. I'm not scrubbing it like I'm painting a fence. I'm just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Simple movements just to cover the page. Very easy. There is no right or wrong. Do not forget that. If you want, you're welcome to use the back of your brush or your fingernail to scrape in and make designs. I don't know if you could see that, but I'm just kind of just pulling it through, and you see the background somewhat when I do that, if you have enough paint on. So the second step will be, once this is dry, I have one that doesn't have tape on it. And what we will do is, maybe I might decide that I want a little more orange in the background or yellow, so I'll just add some of that. Maybe a little white. And just make the background whiter. And that's starting to look a little bit like sky to me. So I think what I'm going to do is grab another brush, a clean brush. Well, I know how to do this, so I'm going to actually attempt to do it with the same brush. But know that if you mix your warm colors and your cool colors, you could end up with muddy colors, which is fine as well. But if you want to keep them clean, then probably just start off with a brush with the blues and yellows mixed together, or some type of green. And here I'm picturing kind of a hillside, and I'm just scratching that in, and maybe on this side as well. And we'll have the sky in the background over here. So I might even decide to finger paint, which is what I like to do the best, and just do an idea of a grassy area. I don't have to cover everything. Leave some of the orange peeking through. And I could add a little bit of water to it because this is all water-based to have it move around more. And in a minute, if I add enough water, I'm going to show you what we could do with our alcohol today. And no, this isn't sipping paint, so try not to drink this isopropyl alcohol, which is right here. I'm going to add a little more yellow. And I have no plan. I'm literally just throwing the paint on. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this with my finger just to make it a little watery, and I'll show you why. Because when we add the alcohol, and I'm just going to take a bottle of alcohol and maybe cover the top a little bit and just allow a couple of drops to fall. Ooh, I allowed too many drops to fall. We might get something interesting. Sometimes I just squirt it on with my finger and wait for something to happen, and nothing happens if it's too, sometimes nothing happens if it's too wet. So I'll just dab it a little bit and maybe try it again and see what happens. Maybe I'll get something else that's interesting. And it might not be wet enough, so I might try again later. I'm not getting any interesting marks right now, so I probably had the paint either too thick or too wet. And again, I'm going to continue to make a grassy concept just by pulling the back of my brush or a skewer through it, whatever you have on hand. I even have this plastic from artificial flowers, and sometimes I just take and I dip it in my paint and I'll just go like that with it, and you get some really interesting marks that you could never ever plan otherwise, and it's really cool. I love that. So at this point I think I would let this dry and have a second one going. Don't just wait for one, always have a second one. I love the reds and yellows that are coming through here. Nanette, can you see that?
Yes.
They're so pretty, they're so much fun. And at some point what we're going to decide is I may make the background lighter, but I'm going to wait for it to dry and see. And we're going to talk about one other thing, which is an art concept. I believe it's called the golden section. And if you divide any painting into a tic-tac-toe and you look where the lines intersect, we're looking for a focal point. So something in the painting that stands out. And the way to do that is, if I go and I add 3 flowers, let's say, or flower-ish designs, I mean, I could have more than that. I could add something here and whatever. The brightest spot on there, or the spot where there's the most contrast, is where your eye is going to go. If I put it in one of those sections, I just choose one, either this one or this one or this one or this one, the eye apparently goes there. And I believe you could add more than one, but for our purposes today, just adding one would be fine. So if I took a little bit of white paint now and put it right over here in this golden section, when you're looking at this entire piece, you probably will focus on that. So I think what I'd also like to do on this piece is maybe dip it. I know Nanette is dying to get her hands in this too, so she'll have her chance now in a second to show you her piece that she's working on. And I'm going to add a little more white here, and it's actually pulling some of the old paint through. This is more fun than I thought. And I have a lot of colors running through. And try to stick to, 3 or 4 basic colors and then add just little sections of another color. I have also a fluorescent paint here, which I might put in. And I'm probably going to just do that with my finger. Just put it over here, and maybe a drop somewhere else, but not as much. And just throw it around a bit. But I could always cover this up with some more green after if I think I've put in too much. And let's see. And yes, I just made a big mess, so I will wipe it off or I'll wait for it to dry and I'll go back in. So don't worry about making a mistake because you can't really go wrong in this. You're going to create your beautiful landscape no matter what. So just be happy with whatever you're doing because it's ever changing, just like anything else in your daily life. So I'm going to put this aside and wait for it to dry and see what I want to do on it next. And I'm going to let this dry and I'm going to let Nanette start on hers. Let's see what you have in store for yourself, Nanette.
Okay, so I am going to start with a plain card. I am not taping mine off because I want to go all the way to the edge. And I'm going to start with the yellows and orange. And let's see what happens here. Oh, and it's kind of muddy. Going to be interesting. Perfect. It is because there's a little bit of green coming through, but actually, you know, it's kind of interesting that
you could not have planned that.
Right now, and it's okay. So to keep the light here. And I think I am going to add a little bit of this lighter color. And like Gail, I like to use my fingers too.
The most fun part of painting is using your fingers.
And with the idea that this needs to get a little lighter and this needs to get a little more contrast here. Let's see what we got going on. Those colors are a little too primary for my taste at the moment. Interesting that we've got a lot of brightness happening there. It's almost like, it looks like I'm gonna.
I like that it's so different than mine.
Well, and it looks like my garden's on fire. Ah, yes. So I think we need a little white.
There's white here.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, to see if we can soften this up a little bit. Let's see what happens when we add some white in here just to get that color to come down a little bit. So it's not quite
so. The more tools that we use, the more interesting marks we'll get.
Well, and yeah, I was just thinking I've got a good collection of paint on here right now, so I could.
You want to let that dry?
Yeah, and I could potentially.
I love that as an abstract.
Yeah,
I think it still is indicative of some type of garden or mountain scene with wildflowers.
Yeah, it's So yes, I can let this dry for a minute and see what's going to happen.
You could work on that orange one that's over there.
So this is the beginning that we had before with the soft oranges, and now it's calling me.
Would you like to try the Stabilo?
Oh, sure. Let's show that. Yeah, let's see what happens if we get. Yeah. How about what feels like it wants to happen here? How about if we had something that's kind of happening in the background that's sort of hilly and something else going on here, and then maybe we have some kind of definition to this. Is beginning to feel more to me like a more pronounced landscape with a mountain in the mountain range in the background.
Right, it doesn't need to be abstract, but I love the shapes that you have on there. So that is abstracting mountain and countryside.
And when we play with this,
you're activating it.
I'm activating it. The pencil, these particular pencils, the Stabilos, they take on a different identity when you add paint or
you could add gesso, not gesso. Well, you could add the clear gesso, or you could add a matte medium or a medium.
Let's see if
but I think the paint will make it stay.
Yeah, I think that this is it's kind of interesting that there's a little bit of just a very kind of, this is feeling pretty, a little bit of blue.
Oh, I think it would be fun if we work on this collaboratively today.
Yes.
And we take turns. Oh, I like that you're putting the darks in it. That's really important, actually, which I didn't do in my piece. I always seem to notice at the end that in order to add more contrast and more value, it's nice to use all of the dark colors as well that we have on our palette.
Yeah, there was something about these mountains that kind of calling me to add these deeper tones. And then I'll come back in through over here. Let's get just a little bit.
Purple becomes a little difficult to work with because when you blend it with the blues or the yellows,
it gets kind of funky.
To dry a little bit.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is the potential for a light layer to come in from here.
Or the background behind the mountains might be cool.
Yeah, a little bit. But then if we add
fun marks.
So yeah, what else? A little more green here, but it feels like it's needs this to be something. Let's see what that's going to be too red. Saw that coming. So I'm kind of going a little soft here. Oh, this is the tone. The creamier